But of course, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਕੰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ support community ਤੋਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੈ, especially in creative ways like Winty Singh's Seva Cycling, right? This is not the first time that Winty has partnered with you, Seva Cycling rahi fundraising ਕਰਨ ਲਈ. But before we kind of get into what you guys are planning for this year, Winty, ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ viewers ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ recap ਦਵੋ. Tell us a little about Seva Cycling and ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ non-profit ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ. What kind of work you've been doing for those that don't remember?
Sure, and thank you for having me on, Ashmita. So I started Seva Cycling, I think around 2014 when I started cycling, and and we talked about this, when I was on a couple of years ago, but I was about 60 pounds overweight, and I, was not an athlete by any stretch of the imagination during my life. I took up cycling as a hobby. I just went around the block one week on an old mountain bike, did 6 miles, and I thought this was fun, and I just kept doing it. And I just kept on increasing my miles. So eventually I signed up for my first event. I bought a road bike, signed up for my first event. It was a 35-mile ride locally for the American Diabetes Association. And so I had never done that kind of fundraising before either, but I was able to raise some money, participate in that ride, and complete it. And there was something very rewarding to me and meaningful for me to be putting my effort for training and doing that ride and suffering through this ride, raising funds for people who need it. Raising, in this case, it was for the Diabetes Association, and supporting people with diabetes, which is obviously a major issue, not just for America in general, but particularly for our community. So there was something about that very motivating and meaningful to me. And I remember the hard parts of that ride where I thought about, I made a commitment to the people who donated to me that I'm going to finish this ride. And that kept me going. So that became my thing. I started to sign up for charity events, and every event was a new challenge. And I would pledge to do that event and ask people to support me, or at least support the cause through me. And that's how Seva Cycling kind of took its first, spins of the wheel, as it were. It was really my way of doing Seva through all of this work that I'm putting out. It's beyond any personal achievement, but, Seva is such a thing for our community that I wanted to put this effort to some greater good. That's what really made it rewarding to me. So the personal challenges are there. Honestly, if I didn't do this for Seva, I probably wouldn't achieve some of the achievements that I've been able to do in terms of just the athletics, the distance, and the times, and the challenges that I've undergone. So that's kind of how it started. That's been 4 years. I think since then I've been able to raise over $30,000 over. I can't even remember how many events now. I do 2 or 3 a year, but $30,000 just people donating to me to do these rides. And so I've supported the American Diabetes Association, the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, the Alzheimer's Society, and some climate change initiatives. When we talked, I was doing a ride for No Kid Hungry, which was at the beginning of the pandemic, trying to provide food for kids who were no longer going to school and depended upon those meals. And then I learned of what was happening with Rian and what Joe had discovered, and I wanted to help. And I thought, this is my way of helping. It's a small drop in the bucket for what is really needed, but I think it's something. It helps people talk about it. It gives more conversation, more visibility to it. We talk about rare disease and how underfunded it is, and we don't have a lot of awareness around it. And most of my rides have been for very large diseases that we've all heard of and that afflict. We all know somebody who's had one of these diseases. But where the need is in these spaces where we don't have visibility, where people are really at their own devices and have no resources to support them. And so Joe has created this organization to develop all of this. She's a lawyer, she's a mom, she's new to all of this, I think. but she's come a long way, and just purely out of her passion for her family. So it's hard not to want to support that. I do want to say, go ahead.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. It's hard not to want to support that. Please.
Yeah, I do want to say a couple of things. In the Sikh community, all of our major organizations started as community personal efforts. When we talk about the Sikh Coalition, this was a handful of lawyers in the days after 9/11 who quickly just went out and tried to get some support and address hate crimes. It became our largest civil rights organization, how many years later. So many of our organizations have started this way. So, when we see the seeds of something new like this being planted, it doesn't happen without community support. It's community people doing it, and so we need to rally to that cause. You don't know what could be possible if we do it. And so many times when we see community tragedy, when we saw what happened with Mandeep Kaur in New York, when we see what happens in Punjab, when we see what happens with hate crimes or other things, after the fact, we always say, if only they had this, if only we could do that, if only we talked about it. When we say if only, it's too late. The tragedy has happened. So let's get in front of that if only. Let's not let if only be, and let's actually say this is what we did. So it's a tragedy for us to say if only we did something, because we can do something now today. And so this is why I'm writing, and this is why I sign up for another challenge, and I say I'm going to do this challenge, but I need your support. And the way you can support me is donating to Rian Research Foundation.